Hi, I'm Pam and I'm from New Zealand, and I've designed this bag here, Who Cares, I'm Retired, with the numbers of the clock all fallen down. A fun bag to have. This one here I've done with 2mm veg tan just on the front, and then 1.5 oil tan on the back, and for that sort of area here. This one I only did one-sided, and I put a teeny weeny clock arms on it, the tiniest ones I could possibly find. And that is all totally stitched out. Then with this one here, I've actually done double-sided. I stitched out one side and I stitched on Who Cares little pieces. They come in the pattern as well. And it's got a zip here, and we've glued the bottom. It's got like an inside glue on the bottom. It's nice and tidy on the inside, so I'll show you how to actually glue the fabric to the leather as well to make a nice tidy inside. You'll see that in the tutorial, and it's a nice big zip opening. So that's a fun pattern. Follow and watch the tutorial and have fun making the bag, or just watch the tutorial out of curiosity how I do it. Thanks for watching. Print out your pattern pieces and cut out all your leather pieces ready for stitching up. You would have decided by now whether you want to stitch on the Who Cares little pieces or actually just stitch out Who Cares with a running stitch like I did on one of mine. So now's the time just to stitch out all your pieces, all your numbers, and then we'll show you how to put on the arms. Going to do so on the D-ring holders. I've actually done them so you can put a really small D-ring holder on it, or you could actually put rings on. I have a huge amount of rings and very few D-rings that often fit the size that you need, so I thought I'd do it spaced so you can do rings or a small D-ring, and it works really well on both the bags that I did. Here you just see me how I actually glued the base bit onto the bottom of the bag. I use rivets, long rivets, to hold them in place once I've glued both. This is just so I can actually make sure I put them in exactly the right place. The rivets are removed, and I keep those for when I do other gluing pieces together. It just means you get everything in exactly the right space. Then they're removed, and then you can put in the correct size rivets. Once I've removed all those rivets, then I do actually just leave it there, put a heavy weight on it, and let it actually set for maybe between 6 to 12 hours. Once dry, then you just put in the correct size rivets, and you have a nice inside bottom part of your bag. Here's where you add your zip. if you're experienced leather maker that have added zips to your bags, you'll know exactly what works for you. For me, I actually use double-sided tape. It's a quilter's double-sided tape. I actually sew it on the sewing machine, but the pattern comes with holes so you can hand stitch it on. I use a much longer zip than is what required, and then I cut it down when I actually have the side pieces attached to the zip. And I always make sure the edges are done nicely before I start. As you can see, I did 2 runs on each side with the sewing machine just to give it the look that I like. But like I said, the pattern does have the stitch holes for you to do it by hand. Now it's time to actually join the pieces together, the bottom piece and the zipper piece. I am using the blue stitch so it stands out, so it's easier to see what I am doing, but it actually looks much better if you do it in a matching thread. On my other bag I did black, which matched the bag. So anyway, you choose how you want to do it. The blue is there so that you can see how to do it. Moment, I'm just getting the measurement for where I want to cut the end of the zip and make sure that it's hidden and not seen when you're looking in the bag when the bag is finished. I also do a stitch over the end. Even though I melt the end, there's nothing worse than a zip tearing open and running up a bag. So I do a hand stitch over that end before I actually carry on and sew that under part to it. As you can see with this bag, I actually hadn't glued on the under part. I actually did that much later and I did regret it. So doing it earlier, like in the video, is the best and easiest option. I just left this one later and made it harder for myself. This is what I meant about stitching over the zipper end. It just goes over and over the teeth. Every now and then on random bags, this can actually open if you haven't got it securely closed. So I do it about 4 times over, knot it, burn it, and then I feel pretty safe that it's not going to open on a customer. Here I am using the blue thread that I talked about earlier. It actually does look quite good, but I would suggest just this one area here doing a matching thread.
how to attach those clock arms, I have actually used a little screw and bolt and nut, but you can use a double-sided rivet or a one-sided rivet, whatever works for you, whatever you've got in your stock. But this is how I did it, and it's worked really well. Yes, I still use the smelly glue. I find it the best. Perfect for all my edges. So for gluing the clock faces onto the fabric, I have actually used thermal curtain, a black thermal curtain. I had a brand new one that I didn't need, and it works perfectly for this bag. Now I do 2 rings. The ring is the size of the clock, the outer one, and the inner ring is the stitching ring where the holes are. That tells me where I need to put the glue. I'll be cutting out up to the stitching hole, so I need to know that the glue goes that far. I pin my pieces to my board so they don't move while I'm doing this smelly job. Now you can see I carefully take my pieces, my clock faces, and put them onto the glued piece of fabric, press them down smoothly. Then I cover them with lunch paper or greaseproof paper, because I don't want any of the weights that I'm going to put on it to damage any of my work. I do leave this to set for quite a while. Maybe first of all I let it set for about 3 hours. Then I come and I do the trimming that I need to do. Then I actually do put the weights back on top of them after I've done the trimming, just to set that glue for a minimum of 6 hours and up to 12 hours before I actually do any moving work with it. This is actually, I'm just trimming up to the stitch holes, as close to the stitch holes as possible, because when we sew the side piece into that, the edge will be covered and it'll look nice and tidy. Now sewing the front and the back on, following and using the markers that I have on the pattern pieces so you get them in the right positions. And just like that, you're done. Really pleased with the inside finish of this bag. It really is a nice, clean, crisp look. Now just add your shoulder strap. You can either make one out of matching leather, or if you have a chain or any other sort of shoulder strap, now's the time to add it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the bags and enjoyed watching the video. Until next time, have a great day.